The billionaire's wife was bleeding on the bathroom floor, and the only person who could save her was the black maid everyone pretended didn't exist. Amara Jackson earned minimum wage cleaning the Grand Meridian's penthouse suites, sending every spare dollar to her dying mother's hospital bills while rich guests complained about champagne temperatures. Richard Thornton had built his fortune on overpriced medications, the same ones Amara's mother couldn't afford, and his pregnant wife Claire was just another asset in his portfolio, locked behind prenups and prescription bottles. When Claire went into labor 7 weeks early with no ambulance in sight, the hotel staff froze, but Amara remembered her grandmother's hands guiding babies into the world with nothing but wisdom and nerve. She could walk away and keep her job, or she could step forward and change everything. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed. The morning light barely touched the grimy windows of the bus as it rumbled through the streets of downtown. Amara Jackson pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching the city transform from run-down apartments to gleaming towers. Every morning, she made this journey from her neighborhood to the world of marble and gold that never truly welcomed her. At 28, Amara had memorized every pothole on this route, every stop where someone like her got off to serve someone who'd never know their name. She adjusted her hotel uniform, crisp and clean despite being washed 100 times. Her mother always said poverty was no excuse for looking poor. Even now, lying in that hospital bed, her mother maintained that dignity mattered more than circumstances. The Grand Meridian Hotel rose before her like a glass mountain, its 60 floors reflecting the morning sun. Amara entered through the employee entrance, a narrow door hidden around the corner from the grand lobby where guests swept through revolving doors flanked by doormen in uniforms fancier than anything she owned. "You're 3 minutes late," Mrs. Patterson, the floor manager, announced without looking up from her clipboard. The woman's steel-gray hair matched her personality, rigid and unforgiving. "The bus broke down on 5th Avenue, Amara explained, though she knew it wouldn't matter. "That's what you said last Tuesday. Perhaps you should consider leaving earlier." Mrs. Patterson's eyes finally met hers, cold and dismissive. "We have standards here, Jackson. The Grand Meridian doesn't tolerate excuses." Amara nodded, swallowing the response burning in her throat. 3 minutes. She'd stayed 2 hours past her shift last week when a guest vomited in the penthouse, but 3 minutes warranted a lecture. She headed to the supply room where other housekeepers prepared their carts. "Look who decided to show up," Brittany called out, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. The blonde woman had worked there 2 years less than Amara, but acted like she owned the place. "Some of us actually care about our jobs." "Leave her alone," Brittany, Sophia, a younger maid, said quietly. She was new, only 19, and still believed in solidarity among workers. "Oh, defending your mentor?" Brittany laughed. "Careful, Sophia. Hang around Jackson too long, and you'll start thinking this job is some kind of calling instead of just cleaning up rich people's messes." Amara loaded fresh towels onto her cart methodically. She'd learned long ago that responding only made things worse. But when Brittany knocked into Sophia's cart, sending supplies tumbling, something inside her stirred. "Pick it up, newbie," Brittany commanded. "Can't have the floors looking messy when the important people arrive." "She didn't knock it over," Amara said, her voice steady but firm. "You did." The supply room went quiet. Other workers pretended to organize their carts, but everyone listened. "Excuse me." Brittany stepped closer. "Did the help just talk back to me?" "We're all the help here, Brittany. Every single one of us." Amara bent down and began picking up Sophia's scattered supplies. No point making it harder than it needs to be. Before Brittany could respond, Mrs. Patterson's voice echoed from the doorway. "If you have time to chat, you have time to work. Floors 30 through 35 need attention. Jackson, you're on the penthouse level today. The penthouse, where the truly wealthy stayed. Where a single night cost more than Amara made in 3 months." She guided her cart to the service elevator, Sophia catching up beside her. "Thank you," the younger woman whispered. "I don't understand why she's so mean." "People punch down when they can't punch up," Amara replied. "Just keep your head up and do good work. That's all we can control." The elevator rose silently, each floor marking another level of luxury. Amara had worked at the Grand Meridian for 5 years, long enough to recognize the patterns. The middle floors housed business travelers who left reasonable tips and treated you like furniture. The upper floors sheltered the wealthy who either ignored you completely or watched your every move with suspicion. But the penthouse level, that was different. That's where people stayed who owned the companies the business travelers worked for. People whose names appeared in newspapers, whose divorces made headlines, whose children's drug arrests got buried with good lawyers. As she pushed her cart down the hushed hallway, Amara caught sight of the preparation happening below through a window. Black SUVs lined up like soldiers. Hotel staff scurried around the main entrance. Someone important was arriving. "Big show today. Marcus," one of the bellhops said as he passed. "Richard Thornton and his wife. You know, the pharmaceutical guy." Amara knew the name. Everyone did. Richard Thornton had built an empire on overpriced medications, the kind that made you choose between treatment and rent. The kind her mother needed but couldn't afford, so they settled for generic alternatives that worked half as well. She entered the first suite, her movements practiced and efficient. Strip the bed, check for forgotten items, dust every surface including the ones guests never touched. The rich expected perfection, even in spaces they'd never notice. She found a watch worth more than her annual salary forgotten on a nightstand. She logged it carefully, knowing that honesty was her only protection against accusations. Her phone buzzed, a text from the hospital. Her mother's latest test results were in. The doctor wanted to discuss treatment options. Amara knew what that meant. More expensive procedures they couldn't afford, more decisions between prolonging life and maintaining dignity. She pushed the thought away. 10 more rooms to clean before lunch. The commotion outside grew louder. Through the window, she watched Richard Thornton emerge from a Bentley, his silver hair perfectly styled, his suit probably worth more than her mother's entire medical debt. He turned to help his wife out, and cameras flashed like hungry moths. Claire Thornton looked exactly like the society pages portrayed her, elegant, blonde, and fragile as expensive china. But Amara noticed something the cameras might miss. The way Claire's hand trembled as she took her husband's arm, the forced smile that didn't reach her eyes, the slight flinch when Richard's grip tightened on her elbow. Quite the spectacle. Mrs. Patterson's voice made Amara jump. The manager stood in the doorway, her expression disapproving. "Don't gawk, Jackson. Suite 6001 needs special attention. The Thorntons specifically requested our best service." "Yes, ma'am. And Jackson, remember your place. These guests don't want conversation or eye contact. You're invisible." "Understood." Amara nodded, though something bitter rose in her throat. Invisible. She'd been invisible her whole life, to employers, to the system, to everyone except her mother and the bills that never stopped coming. She prepared Suite 6001 with extra care. Fresh orchids in crystal vases, champagne chilling at exactly the right temperature, towels folded into perfect swans. The Thorntons' luggage had already been delivered, 12 pieces of matching leather that probably cost more than most people's cars. As she adjusted the curtains, she heard voices in the hallway. Richard Thornton's boomed with authority. "I don't care about the Tokyo meeting. Handle it. That's why I pay you." "Richard, please." Claire's voice was softer, pleading. "You promised this would be a relaxation trip. Business doesn't stop because you need a spa day, Claire. The merger happens this week or not at all. The doctor said stress isn't good for her. The doctor says whatever I pay him to say. You're fine." Their voices faded as they moved past. Amara finished her work quickly, not wanting to be caught in the suite when they arrived. But as she gathered her supplies, she noticed Claire's medical bag left open on the dresser. Prescription bottles lined up like soldiers, names she recognized from her mother's treatment. Anti-anxiety medication, painkillers, and something else, prenatal vitamins. She closed the bag quickly, pretending she hadn't seen. But the image stuck, all that money, all that power, and still Claire Thornton needed pills to get through the day. The afternoon wore on with its usual rhythm. Clean, reset, repeat. But Amara found her thoughts returning to that medical bag, to Claire's trembling hands, to the way Richard spoke to his wife like she was another employee to manage. During her break, she sat in the staff room, picking at a sandwich she'd brought from home. The television mounted in the corner played a news segment about Richard Thornton's latest acquisition, a smaller pharmaceutical company that manufactured generic drugs. The reporter praised his business acumen. No one mentioned that those generic drugs would now likely triple in price. "Must be nice," Marcus said, joining her at the table. "Having so much money, you can buy whole companies." "Money can't buy everything," Amara replied, thinking of Claire's medication arsenal. "Says someone who doesn't have any." Marcus laughed, but not unkindly. "Trust me, I'd rather be miserable in a Bentley than happy on the bus." "Would you?" Amara wanted to ask, but she stayed quiet, finishing her sandwich as the news moved on to other stories of the wealthy and powerful. Her phone buzzed again. The hospital billing department this time. Final notice on her mother's last procedure. Amara did quick math in her head. If she picked up extra shifts, if she skipped lunch for the next month, if she could convince them to accept a payment plan. "Jackson," Mrs. Patterson's sharp voice cut through her calculations. "The Thorntons want their suite refreshed. Now." It had been 3 hours since she prepared the room. Amara grabbed fresh supplies and headed back up. She knocked softly before entering, announcing housekeeping to the seemingly empty suite. But it wasn't empty. Claire Thornton sat on the balcony, her back to the room, speaking quietly on her phone. "No, Mother, I can't leave him. You don't understand what he's capable of." A pause. The prenup was ironclad. "I get nothing. Less than nothing." Another pause. "I know what you think, but having this baby won't change anything. It'll just give him another thing to control." Amara froze, knowing she should leave, but unable to move without drawing attention. Claire continued, unaware of her presence. "The doctor says I'm high risk. The stress, the age, the previous attempts. Richard doesn't care. He just wants an heir, someone to carry on his legacy." Claire's voice cracked. "Sometimes I think he sees me as just another acquisition, another company to manage until it produces what he wants." The balcony door slid open further, and Claire turned. Her eyes met Amara's, wide with embarrassment and fear. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Thornton. I knocked, but you heard. It wasn't a question. I'll just leave these fresh towels and—" "Please." Claire stood, wrapping her silk robe tighter. "Please don't say anything. Richard can't know I call my mother. He monitors everything, but I found this phone and—" "I didn't hear anything, ma'am." Amara moved efficiently, replacing towels, pretending the conversation never happened. Claire watched her work, seeming to really see her for the first time. "You're very discreet." "It's my job, ma'am." "No," Claire said softly. "Your job is to clean. Discretion is a choice." "What's your name?" "Amara, ma'am." "Amara Jackson." "Amara." Claire tested the name. "That's beautiful. What does it mean?" "Grace. My mother chose it. Said she wanted me to move through the world with grace, no matter what it threw at me." A sad smile crossed Claire's face. "Your mother sounds wise." "She is." Amara hesitated, then added, "She's also sick. Has been for a while." Why she shared this with a stranger, a wealthy stranger who could have her fired with a word, Amara didn't know. Maybe it was the vulnerability in Claire's eyes, the recognition of one trapped woman to another. "I'm sorry," Claire said, and somehow Amara believed she meant it. The suite door burst open, making both women jump. Richard Thornton entered like a storm, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders. He stopped when he saw Amara. "Why is the help still here?" He didn't address her directly, speaking to Claire as if Amara was a piece of furniture that had been misplaced. "I asked for fresh towels," Claire lied smoothly. "The ones from this morning weren't acceptable." Richard's eyes narrowed, looking between them. Amara kept her gaze down, playing her role of invisibility. "Well, get out," he finally said to Amara. "And next time, be faster. We don't pay these prices to wait on incompetent staff." Amara gathered her supplies and left, but not before catching Claire's eye one last time. A silent understanding passed between them. Two women trapped in different cages, but cages nonetheless. The next morning arrived gray and humid, the kind of weather that made the hotel's air conditioning work overtime. Amara had barely slept, her mind churning over her mother's bills and the strange encounter with Claire Thornton. She arrived at work 15 minutes early, determined to avoid another lecture from Mrs. Patterson. The penthouse level felt different today, charged with an energy she couldn't quite name. The Thornton suite was her third stop, and she approached it with unusual nervousness. She knocked, waited, heard nothing. Using her master key, she entered to find the space in unusual disarray. Papers scattered across the dining table, an overturned wine glass staining the carpet, a chair knocked askew. Richard's voice carried from the bedroom, sharp and angry. "The deal closes today, or heads will roll. I don't care what the regulators say. Find a way around it." Amara worked quickly, trying to clean around the chaos without disturbing anything important. She was on her knees, treating the wine stain, when she heard it, a low moan of pain from the other bedroom. She paused, listening. Another moan, longer this time, followed by rapid breathing. Amara stood, uncertain. It wasn't her business, but something felt wrong. She moved toward the hallway, ready to leave, when a scream pierced the air. It was Claire, and it was pure agony. Before Amara could react, the master bedroom door flew open. Richard stood there, his usually perfect composure completely shattered. His tie hung loose, his hair disheveled, his face pale with panic. "Call someone," he shouted at Amara. Then, louder to the entire floor, "My wife's having a baby now. Someone help." Amara dropped her cleaning supplies and rushed forward. "Did you call 911? Yes, but they said traffic, 20 minutes at least. She can't wait 20 minutes. Another scream from the bedroom. Amara pushed past Richard, finding Claire on the bathroom floor, her silk nightgown soaked with sweat and other fluids. She was clutching her stomach, her face contorted in pain. "It's too early," Claire gasped. "I'm only 7 months. Something's wrong." Amara knelt beside her, her mind racing. Around them, she could hear the chaos building. Hotel staff gathering in the hallway, guests peering out of their rooms, everyone talking but no one acting. "Get out!" Richard suddenly turned on Amara. "You're just a maid. You don't touch her." But Claire's hand shot out, gripping Amara's wrist with surprising strength. "No." She stays. Her eyes locked on Amara's. "You helped yesterday. You were kind. Please, I need someone kind. Ma'am, I'm not qualified. Please." Claire's plea was cut off by another contraction. Richard paced the bathroom like a caged animal. "This is insane. Where are the real professionals? What kind of hotel doesn't have medical staff?" "Sir," Amara said, forcing calm into her voice, "I need you to get clean towels from the closet. Lots of them. And hot water. You don't give me orders." "Richard," Claire's voice cut through his pride. "Do what she says." Amara turned back to Claire, her hands steadying. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Calm in crisis, gentle with the frightened. She'd spent summers in rural Georgia, watching her grandmother deliver babies when the hospital was too far and the doctors wouldn't come to their neighborhood. "Claire, listen to me. I need to check how far along you are. Is that okay?" Claire nodded, tears streaming down her face. "The baby, it's too early." "Babies come when they're ready," Amara said, carefully helping Claire into a better position. What she saw made her heart race. This baby was coming now, whether they were ready or not. Mrs. Patterson appeared in the doorway, her face horror-stricken. "Jackson, what are you doing? This is a liability nightmare. Getting sued is better than letting her bleed out on our bathroom floor." Amara shot back, surprising herself with her boldness. "I'll have you fired for this. Then fire me tomorrow. Today, I'm helping." Richard returned with towels, his hands shaking. For the first time since Amara had seen him, he looked human, frightened, vulnerable, desperate. Will they be okay?" "She's strong," Amara said, not really answering. She positioned towels under Claire, remembering her grandmother's lessons. "Claire, when the next contraction comes, I need you to push." "I can't. It hurts too much." "I know, honey. I know." The endearment slipped out naturally. "But your baby needs you to be strong now. Can you do that?" Claire nodded, gripping both Amara's and Richard's hands. The next contraction hit, and she bore down with a primal scream that echoed through the suite. Good, that's good, Amara encouraged. I can see the head. Your baby has dark hair. Dark hair. Richard sounded bewildered. But we're both blonde. Genetics are funny, Amara said quickly, focused on the task. Claire, one more big push. The room had filled with spectators, hotel staff, a few brave guests, someone filming on their phone despite Mrs. Patterson's protests. But Amara blocked them all out, her world narrowing to Claire and the tiny life fighting to enter the world. With a final, exhausting push, the baby emerged into Amara's waiting hands. For a terrifying moment, silence. The baby was so small, so still. Amara rubbed the tiny back, cleared the mouth and nose with practiced motions her grandmother had shown her on dolls decades ago. Then a cry, weak but determined, the sound of life demanding to be heard. It's a girl, Amara announced, wrapping the baby in a clean towel and placing her on Claire's chest. She's small but breathing well. Claire sobbed, holding her daughter with trembling arms. She's perfect. Oh God, she's perfect. Richard stood frozen, staring at the tiny bundle. His expression was unreadable. Shock, fear, something else Amara couldn't identify. You, he started, looking at Amara. You saved them. The paramedics are here, someone shouted from the main room. The professionals swept in, taking over with their equipment and expertise. But the crisis had passed. The baby was here, Claire was conscious, and both were stable. As they transferred Claire to a stretcher, she refused to let go of Amara's hand. What's your name again? She asked weakly. Amara Jackson. Amara Jackson, Claire repeated. You saved my daughter's life. I won't forget that. The paramedic gently separated them, needing to get Claire to the ambulance. The suite emptied quickly, leaving Amara standing in the destroyed bathroom, blood on her uniform, towels scattered everywhere. Mrs. Patterson appeared in the doorway, her face a storm of emotions. Do you have any idea what you just done? My job, Amara replied, exhaustion hitting her all at once. I helped a guest in distress. You performed a medical procedure without certification. If anything had gone wrong, but it didn't. Marcus the bellhop appeared behind Mrs. Patterson, his phone in hand. And it's already viral. Hero Maid delivers Billionaire's baby. The hotel is getting incredible publicity. Mrs. Patterson's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Finally, she managed, clean this up, then report to my office. After she left, Marcus showed Amara his phone. The video was everywhere. The dramatic delivery, Richard Thornton's panic, and Amara's calm competence in the chaos. The comments were pouring in, praising the unsung hero who stepped up when needed. You're famous, Marcus said with awe. I'm tired, Amara corrected, beginning to gather the soiled towels. Leave it, Sophia appeared with her cart. I'll clean. You should rest. It's my mess. It's not a mess, Sophia interrupted. It's a miracle. You delivered a baby, Amara. A premature baby who might not have made it if you'd waited for the ambulance. Amara sank onto the edge of the bathtub, the adrenaline finally fading. Her hands started shaking. She delivered a baby, a billionaire's baby, in a hotel bathroom. Her grandmother would never believe this. Her phone buzzed with texts, numbers she didn't recognize, reporters already tracking her down. Her mother, who'd seen the news on the hospital TV. Her cousin in Atlanta. Everyone wanted to know if it was real. But one message stood out from an unknown number. This is Claire. They gave me your number from the hotel. We're at Presbyterian Hospital. Baby is in NICU, but stable. Thank you doesn't seem like enough, but thank you. Please come visit when you can. I need to thank you properly. Amara stared at the message. In 5 years of working at the Grand Meridian, she'd never had a guest learn her name, much less asked to see her again. But then, she'd never delivered a baby before either. As she finally left the suite, she found a crowd waiting in the hallway. Other maids, bellhops, even some of the kitchen staff had come up to see. They looked at her differently now, not with the usual indifference or mild contempt, but with something approaching respect. Is it true? One of them asked. You really delivered the baby? Amara nodded, too tired for words. That took guts, another said, standing up to Patterson and Thornton both. I just did what needed doing, Amara replied, unconsciously echoing her grandmother's favorite phrase. Brittany stood at the edge of the crowd, her usual sneer replaced by something more complex. Envy mixed with grudging admiration. Don't let it go to your head, she said. You're still just a maid. I know exactly what I am, Amara replied, meeting her gaze steadily. The question is, do you? She pushed through the crowd, heading for the service elevator. She needed to change her uniform, call her mother, and figure out what came next. Because something had shifted in those frantic minutes on the bathroom floor. She'd been invisible for so long, but now everyone was watching. And Amara had the feeling this was just the beginning of something much bigger than a baby's dramatic entrance into the world. The elevator descended, and through the glass windows, she could see news vans already gathering outside the hotel. The story was spreading, growing, taking on a life of its own. The invisible maid who became visible at exactly the right moment. Her grandmother always said that God put people where they needed to be when they needed to be there. Amara had never been particularly religious, but standing in that elevator, blood still under her fingernails from bringing new life into the world, she wondered if maybe her grandmother had been right all along. The lobby was chaos when the elevator doors opened. Reporters pushed against security. Guests clustered around phones watching the viral video, and Mrs. Patterson was attempting damage control with a forced smile and prepared statement about the Grand Meridian's exceptional staff. Amara slipped out the employee entrance, but not before catching a glimpse of the television over the concierge desk. There she was, captured in someone's shaky footage, cradling a newborn with steady hands while a billionaire stood helpless beside her. The caption read, "Hotel Maid becomes unlikely hero." Unlikely. As if heroism was reserved for people with degrees and bank accounts. As if courage needed a pedigree. Amara walked to the bus stop, her usual route now feeling different. Everything felt different. She'd walked into work this morning as invisible as always. She was leaving it known, seen, witnessed. Whether that was a blessing or a curse remained to be seen. The ambulance lights were still flashing in Amara's mind as she stood in the hospital corridor 6 hours later. She'd gone home, showered, changed in her only nice dress, the simple navy blue one she wore to church, and come to Presbyterian Hospital. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was Claire's text, or maybe she just needed to see with her own eyes that the baby was really okay. The NICU was a world of beeping machines and tiny lives fighting to thrive. Through the window, she could see Claire sitting beside an incubator, her hand reaching through a port to touch her daughter. Richard stood behind his wife, his posture stiff, phone in hand, even here. A nurse noticed Amara hesitating. "Are you family?" "No, She's with us." Claire's voice carried from inside the room. She'd seen Amara through the glass. "Please let her in." The nurse buzzed Amara through after she sanitized her hands. Up close, the baby looked impossibly small, a network of tubes and monitors attached to her tiny body. 3 pounds, 2 ounces, Claire said softly. "They say she's doing well for 31 weeks. Her lungs are developed enough. We were lucky. We were lucky you were there," Richard corrected, though his tone suggested the admission cost him. He studied Amara with calculating eyes. "The media is having a field day with this." "Richard," Claire warned. "I'm simply stating facts. The story is everywhere. Billionaire's baby delivered by Hotel Maid. The board is not pleased with the attention. Your board can." "Claire." Richard's voice carried a sharp edge. "Please. We're in public." The please was perfunctory, an order disguised as a request. Amara recognized the tone. She'd heard it from dozens of men who said please when they meant obey. "What's her name?" Amara asked, try to ease the tension. Claire's face softened. "Grace. We're naming her Grace." She looked at Amara meaningfully. It seemed appropriate, given how she came into the world. Amara felt her throat tighten. Her middle name was Grace, though Claire couldn't know that. "Ms. Jackson," Richard said, his business voice sliding into place. "We should discuss compensation for your assistance today. I don't want money. Everyone wants money. Name your price. Within reason." "Richard, stop," Claire intervened. "She's not one of your business deals. Everything is a business deal. He pulled out his checkbook. 50,000? That seems fair for services rendered. Amara stared at him. $50,000. More than she made in a year. Enough to pay off some of her mother's medical debt. Her hand actually twitched toward it before she caught herself. I said I don't want money. Richard's eyes narrowed. Then what do you want? I wanted to make sure they were okay. That's all. Nobody is that altruistic. Maybe you just don't know the right people, Amara replied quietly. For a moment, Richard looked genuinely confused, as if she'd spoken in a foreign language. Then his phone rang, and he stepped out to answer it, leaving the two women alone. I'm sorry about him, Claire said. He doesn't understand kindness without transaction. He's probably in shock. Becoming a father is overwhelming even when you're prepared. Claire's laugh was bitter. He's not overwhelmed by becoming a father. He's overwhelmed by losing control of the narrative. The baby came early, in public, delivered by someone he considers beneath him. It's not how Richard Thornton's heir was supposed to arrive. Heir. That's all Grace is to him. A successor. Someone to carry on the Thornton empire. Claire's finger traced the incubator's edge. He had the nursery designed by the same firm that does his offices. Everything gray and modern, nothing soft or warm. I had to fight just to add a rocking chair. Through the window, Amara could see Richard pacing the hallway, gesticulating as he talked. Even from here, his agitation was obvious. You could leave, Amara said softly. Take Grace and go. With what money? Richard controls everything. The prenup I signed. I was 22 and in love. I didn't read it carefully. If I leave, I get nothing. And now, with Grace, he'd never let me take her. He has the best lawyers money can buy. Money can't buy everything. It's bought him everything so far. They sat in silence, watching Grace's tiny chest rise and fall. The baby's hand, no bigger than a quarter, wrapped around Claire's finger. The video is everywhere, Claire said eventually. My mother called. My college roommate. People I haven't heard from in years. They all saw you save my baby. I just helped. You saved her. The doctor said if we'd waited for the ambulance in that traffic, with the cord wrapped the way it was, you saved her, Amara. Richard returned, his face darker than when he'd left. The hospital administrator wants to speak with me. Apparently, having news vans in the parking lot is disruptive to patient care. He looked at Amara. You should go. The media attention will die down faster if we don't feed it. Richard, Claire protested. What? I'm being practical. Ms. Jackson did a commendable thing, but continuing this association will only prolong the circus. She's not an association. She's the reason our daughter is alive. The paramedics would have. The paramedics were 20 minutes away. Grace couldn't wait 20 minutes. Their argument felt practiced, like they'd been having versions of it for years. Amara stood to leave, but Claire caught her hand. Please come back. Tomorrow, if you can. I'd like to see you again. Richard's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Amara nodded, squeezed Claire's hand, and left. The hospital lobby was a shock after the quiet intensity of the NICU. Reporters clustered near the entrance, held back by security. Someone recognized her. Ms. Jackson. Amara, can you tell us about delivering the baby? How does it feel to be a hero? Did Richard Thornton offer you a reward? Amara pushed through them, keeping her head down. She'd never been comfortable with attention, and this felt like standing naked under spotlights. Her phone had been ringing nonstop. She finally answered when she saw it was her mother calling from the hospital. Baby girl, I saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine, Mama. You delivered a baby? My Amara delivered Richard Thornton's baby. His wife's baby, Mama. She's a person, too. Her mother's voice carried that tone that meant she had thoughts she was keeping to herself. You be careful, baby. When rich folks' business becomes poor folks' business, it's usually the poor folks who suffer. I was just doing what needed doing. I know, baby. Your grandmother would be proud. She always said you had the gift. What gift? The gift of being where you're needed when you're needed. But gifts can be burdens, too. You remember that. When Amara arrived at work the next morning, everything had changed. Photographers waited outside the employee entrance. Her coworkers stared. Mrs. Patterson's lips were so pursed they'd practically disappeared. My office. Now, the office smelled like disappointment and cheap air freshener. Mrs. Patterson sat behind her desk like a judge at trial. Do you have any idea what you've done? I helped a guest in distress. You exposed this hotel to massive liability. You performed a medical procedure without certification. You could have killed them both. But I didn't. That's not the point. Mrs. Patterson's composure cracked. You overstepped every boundary. You ignored direct orders. You made this hotel look unprepared and unprofessional. The news is calling us heroes. The hotel is getting great publicity. The hotel doesn't need publicity. We need discretion. Our clients pay for privacy, not viral videos of their most vulnerable moments. A knock interrupted them. One of the front desk managers peered in. Mrs. Patterson? Mr. Thornton is here. He wants to speak with you and Ms. Jackson. Richard entered like he owned the place, which Amara realized he very well might partially own. His presence filled the small office. Mrs. Patterson, I trust you're handling this situation appropriately? Yes, Mr. Thornton. I was just explaining to Ms. Jackson that her behavior was completely heroic. Richard interrupted. Yes, that's what the Times called it. Also the Post, CNN, and roughly 50 million people on social media. Mrs. Patterson's mouth opened and closed. My wife, Richard continued, is extremely grateful to Ms. Jackson. As am I, naturally. We wouldn't want any negative actions taken against her. That would look quite bad, wouldn't it? Punishing the woman who saved my daughter. The threat was politely delivered, but unmistakable. Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly. However, Richard turned to Amara. We also value discretion. The media attention needs to stop. No interviews, no statements, no book deals or movie rights. Are we clear? I haven't talked to any reporters. Good. Keep it that way. In exchange, you'll keep your job and receive a commendation from the hotel. Everyone wins. He left without waiting for a response. Mrs. Patterson looked like she'd swallowed something sour. Get back to work, she managed. And Jackson, stay away from the penthouse level. You're reassigned to the third floor until further notice. The third floor, where the budget business travelers stayed. It was clearly a demotion, but Amara didn't argue. She gathered her supplies and headed to her new assignment. 2 weeks passed in a strange new rhythm. The third floor was quieter than the penthouse level, but Amara couldn't escape her sudden notoriety. Guests recognized her, wanting selfies with the hero Maid. Some tipped extravagantly. Others treated her like a circus attraction. She visited Claire and Grace every other day, always careful to avoid Richard. The baby was growing stronger, finally breathing without assistance. Claire seemed to live at the hospital, dark circles under her eyes, but refusing to leave Grace's side. Richard wants to hire a night nurse, Claire said during one visit. 3 nannies, actually, around-the-clock care, so we don't have to disrupt our schedules. That might help you get some rest. I don't want strangers raising my daughter. I want to be her mother, not just the woman who gave birth to her. Then be her mother. It's not that simple. Richard has expectations. Galas, fundraisers, company events. The wife's job is to smile and look pretty, not change diapers. Maybe it's time to redefine the job. Claire laughed, but it was hollow. You don't redefine anything with Richard. You comply or you suffer. That afternoon, when Amara was leaving the hospital, she found Richard waiting by her bus stop. His Bentley idled at the curb, drawing stares from everyone passing by. We need to talk. I'm not doing interviews. Not about that. Get in. It wasn't really a request. Amara glanced around, broad daylight, busy street. She got in. The car's interior was all leather and silence. Richard didn't speak until they'd pulled away from the curb. My wife has become attached to you. Amara said nothing, knowing there was more coming. She trusts you, talks to you. She's even mentioned having you help with Grace when she comes home. I have a job. Yes, cleaning toilets for minimum wage plus tips. I'm sure that's very fulfilling. His contempt was casual like breathing. What do you want, Mr. Thornton? I want you to stay away from my family. Your wife invited me. My wife is hormonal and emotional. She's not thinking clearly. She seems perfectly clear to me. Richard's hand tightened on his knee. Let me be more direct. I will pay you $100,000 to quit your job, leave the city, and never contact my wife again. Amara stared at him. You want to pay me to abandon the woman whose baby I delivered? I want to pay you to remove a complication from our lives. I'm a complication? You're a reminder of a moment when I wasn't in control. When my family's private medical emergency became public entertainment. Every time Claire sees you, she remembers that moment. It's not healthy. What's not healthy is trying to buy away everyone who shows your wife genuine kindness. Richard's face darkened. You don't know anything about our marriage. I know your wife is lonely. I know she's scared. I know she feels trapped. She told you that. His voice went dangerously quiet. Amara realized she'd said too much. She doesn't have to. Listen very carefully. Richard leaned forward. I built an empire from nothing. I've destroyed companies 10 times bigger than the hotel you work for. I could buy your mother's hospital and have her transferred to a facility in Alaska. I can ensure you never work in this city again. Or, his tone shifted, becoming almost pleasant. You could take my generous offer and start fresh somewhere else. Your choice. The car had stopped. They were back at the hospital. Amara reached for the door handle. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. My patience has limits. She got out, her legs shaking. The threat was clear: comply or be destroyed. She'd heard similar threats before, from landlords and employers and others with power, but none of them had Richard Thornton's resources. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Daniel from the hotel. Need to talk to you. Important. Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th. Daniel was one of the younger bellhops, always friendly, but never particularly close to her. Still, something made her go. He was waiting in a corner booth, nervously shredding a napkin. Thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you would. What's this about? Mr. Thornton. He's been asking questions about you. Having people follow you. How do you know that? Daniel looked around nervously. My cousin works security for his company. He told me Thornton has a file on you. Your mother's medical history, your credit score, everything. Why are you telling me this? Because what you did, delivering that baby, it meant something to all of us at the hotel who get treated like furniture. You stood up. You didn't back down. And now he's trying to destroy you for it. He offered me money to leave. Take it, Daniel said immediately. Take it and run. You don't know what he's capable of. Do you? Daniel was quiet for a moment. 2 years ago, a maid at his house accused him of assault. She had evidence. But suddenly her family had immigration issues. Her brother got arrested on drug charges that came out of nowhere. She disappeared. Nobody knows where. Amara's blood chilled. And you know this how? My cousin. He was told to handle some of the arrangements. He's not proud of it, but he has a family to feed too. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, Daniel admitted. But Claire Thornton isn't the first woman to suffer in that marriage. And you won't be the last person Richard destroys for getting in his way. Unless you get out now. That night, Amara sat with her mother, holding her frail hand while machines beeped around them. She'd been stable lately, but stable was relative when cancer was involved. What's troubling you, baby? Amara told her everything. The delivery, Claire's friendship, Richard's threats, the money. Her mother listened, then was quiet for a long time. Your grandmother once told me that every person faces a moment when they have to choose between what's safe and what's right. She faced it when she helped girls in trouble when abortion was illegal. I faced it when I reported my boss for stealing wages, even though it cost me my job. And what did you choose? You know what I chose. We ate beans for 6 months, but I slept with a clear conscience. She squeezed Amara's hand. The question is, what will you choose? He could destroy us, Mama. The hospital bills, your care. I'm dying anyway, baby. Whether it's in a fancy room or a state ward, the result's the same. But you have to live with your choices for a long time after I'm gone. Don't talk like that. Someone has to. Now, this Claire, is she worth the risk? Amara thought about Claire's desperate grip during labor, her fierce love for Grace. The way she'd said, please stay, like Amara was the only solid thing in her world. She needs help, Mama. Then you have your answer. The next morning, Amara was back on the 3rd floor when Sophia found her. Mrs. Thornton is here, in the penthouse. She's asking for you. I'm not supposed to go up there. She says it's urgent. Against her better judgment, Amara went. She found Claire in the suite, surrounded by boxes and shopping bags. Baby supplies filled every surface. She's coming home tomorrow, Claire said, her voice bright but brittle. Grace is finally coming home. That's wonderful. Is it? Claire's facade cracked. Richard's already hired the nannies. 3 of them, like I said. They'll work in shifts, so someone's always with her. He's essentially ensuring I never have to touch my own daughter. You're her mother. You have rights. I have no rights. I signed them away years ago. Claire pulled out a thick document. The postnuptial agreement he made me sign after my first miscarriage, when I was vulnerable and grieving. It says if I'm deemed an unfit mother, he gets full custody. How could you be unfit? You love her. I'm on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. I've been hospitalized twice for exhaustion, which was really breakdowns. Any good lawyer could paint me as unstable. Claire, I need your help. Claire grabbed her hands. I need someone I trust. Someone who cares about Grace as a baby, not as the Thornton heir. Would you consider being her nanny? I have a job. I'll pay you triple what the hotel pays. Please. I know Richard threatened you. He threatens everyone. But I need an ally. I need someone on my side. How do you know he threatened me? I know my husband. It's what he does. Before Amara could answer, Richard entered. His face went cold when he saw her. What is she doing here? I asked her to come. I want her to be Grace's nanny. Absolutely not. Why? She delivered her. She saved her life. She's a hotel maid, not a qualified childcare provider. The woman you hired has credentials, but no heart. I want someone who'll love Grace. This isn't a discussion. Richard's voice carried the edge that meant violence was close. Not physical. Richard was too sophisticated for that. But violence all the same. You're right, Claire said quietly. It's not. She walked to the desk and pulled out another document. A press release I've written about how the hero who delivered our baby is being prevented from helping care for her by my controlling husband. I wonder how your board would feel about that story going viral. Richard went very still. You wouldn't dare. I'm already trapped in this marriage. What more can you do to me? You'd be surprised. And you'd be surprised what a desperate mother will do for her child. They stared at each other. Years of marriage boiled down to this moment of mutual threat. Amara felt like she was watching 2 people point loaded guns at each other. Fine, Richard said finally. But she signs an NDA, and she follows the rules I set. Our rules. Our daughter. Of course. His smile was sharp as glass. Our daughter. He left, and Claire sank into a chair, shaking. Are you sure about this? Amara asked. You just declared war. The war started years ago. I just finally picked up a weapon. Claire looked up at her. Will you do it? Will you help me? Amara thought about her mother's words, about choosing between safe and right. She thought about Grace, so small and vulnerable, born into a battlefield disguised as a palace. Yes, she said. I'll help. Claire hugged her, crying with relief. Over her shoulder, Amara could see the city sprawling below, all that wealth and power that Richard commanded. She just put herself between a billionaire and what he wanted to control. Her grandmother used to say that David beat Goliath not because he was stronger, but because he was willing to fight when everyone else was too scared to try. Standing in that penthouse, holding a desperate woman who'd become an unlikely friend, Amara picked up her own stone to throw. The NDA was 47 pages long. Amara sat in a conference room at Richard's law firm, surrounded by men in suits who looked at her like she was something stuck to their shoes. The document basically said she couldn't breathe without Richard's permission. No talking to media, no social media posts, no discussing the family's private matters with anyone, ever. This is standard, the lawyer droned. Mr. Thornton values his privacy. This says I can't even tell my mother where I work. You can say you're a nanny, just not for whom. Amara read through it carefully, her mother's voice in her head warning her about signing things she didn't understand. But Claire needed her. Grace needed her. She signed. The penthouse had been transformed into a nursery that looked like it belonged in a magazine, all whites and grays with touches of rose gold. Nothing like the warm, colorful nurseries Amara had seen in her neighborhood. Grace looked tiny in a massive crib, surrounded by monitors and machines that tracked every breath. The other nannies will handle nights, Richard announced, treating Amara like staff even though she was now technically staff. You'll work 7 to 7, Monday through Friday. The weekend nanny, starts tomorrow. I want Amara on weekends too, Claire said from the doorway. That's excessive. She delivered grace. She stays. Richard's jaw tightened, but he'd apparently learned to pick his battles. Fine, but she gets one day off. Sundays, Amara said, I need Sundays for my mother. He waved dismissively and left for his office. Claire immediately relaxed, moving to pick up Grace. Let me check her schedule. The night nanny, Patricia, intervened. She's not due for feeding for another 13 minutes. She's crying now. Crying is good for their lungs. The schedule says, give me my daughter. Claire's voice could have frozen water. Patricia handed over Grace, disapproval radiating from every pore. She was exactly what Richard wanted, efficient, clinical, treating Grace like a tiny CEO with meetings to attend. She judges me, Claire whispered after Patricia left. They all do. The perfect mother wouldn't need help. The perfect mother wouldn't be on medication. The perfect mother doesn't exist, Amara said, taking Grace so Claire could rest. And anyone who says different is selling something. The first week established a routine. Amara arrived at 7 to find Claire already up, having barely slept. Richard left for the office by 8, earlier if he had international calls. The other nannies came and went like shift workers, making notes in a leather-bound log about every feeding, every diaper, every minute of sleep. But something was off. Amara noticed it in small things. Documents left on Richard's desk that got quickly hidden when she entered, hush phone calls that stopped when she passed, men in suits who came to the penthouse but never gave their names. One morning, while Richard was in the shower and Claire was feeding Grace, Amara was tidying his office when she saw it. A contract left open on his desk, probably forgotten in his morning rush. The letterhead was for the Grand Meridian Hotel, but the details made her stomach turn. Confidential transfer agreement, it read. Money was being moved through the hotel's accounts. Huge sums labeled as renovation funds, but going to offshore accounts. The signatures included not just Richard's, but the hotel senior management. She heard the shower turn off and quickly moved away, but not before her phone's camera caught an image of the document. She didn't know why she took it. Instinct, maybe, or her grandmother's voice saying, evidence is protection. You're being paranoid, she told herself. But then she remembered Daniel's warning about the maid who'd disappeared. The media storm about Grace's birth had mostly died down, replaced by newer scandals. But occasionally, someone recognized Amara on the street. You're the hero Maid, a woman said at the grocery store. How's the baby? I can't discuss that, Amara replied, the NDA like a collar around her throat. Oh, of course. But you saved them. That must feel amazing. Did it? Some days, watching Claire fight for every moment with her daughter while Richard built walls around them, Amara wondered if she'd save them or just prolong their captivity. Claire was getting worse. The medication wasn't helping, and Richard's control was tightening. He'd installed cameras in the nursery for security. He reviewed the nanny logs every night, questioning any deviation from the schedule. He'd even hired a consultant to evaluate Claire's maternal fitness. He's building a case, Claire said one afternoon, holding Grace like she might be taken away at any moment. Every time I cry, every time I'm too tired to fight him, it goes in a file somewhere. You're not unfit. Try telling that to a judge when Richard's lawyers present their evidence. The depressed, medicated wife versus the successful businessman who just wants what's best for his child. Then we need our own evidence. Claire looked at her sharply. What do you mean? Amara thought about the photo on her phone. Nothing specific. Just maybe document things too. Keep records. That night, Amara was putting Grace down when she heard Richard on a call in his office. His voice was angry, frightened even. I don't care what the FBI is sniffing around about. They have nothing. No, the hotel records are clean. That's your job, isn't it? To make problems disappear. FBI? Amara's hand stilled on Grace's back. Whatever Richard was involved in, it was bigger than she'd imagined. She found Daniel during her lunch break the next day. He looked nervous when she mentioned what she'd overheard. You need to be careful, he said. My cousin says there's been chatter. Something about an investigation into money laundering. The hotel might be involved. Should I quit and leave Claire alone with him? While he's desperate. Daniel shook his head. Just watch your back, and maybe keep records of anything suspicious. For insurance. That evening, Claire had a breakthrough. Or maybe a breakdown. It was hard to tell. I'm leaving him, she announced to Amara, holding a glass of wine with shaking hands. I've made up my mind. I'll take Grace and go. Where? My mother's house in Connecticut. She has money Richard can't touch. Old family money. What about the post-nuptial agreement? I'll fight it. I'll get lawyers. She stopped, her face crumbling. I can't. Can I? He'll destroy me. He'll take Grace. Not if you're smart about it. Claire looked at her with desperate hope. Do you have a plan? Not yet. But my grandmother always said when you're fighting someone bigger, you don't announce your moves. You prepare in silence and strike when they're not expecting it. Your grandmother sounds wise. She was. Claire, has Richard ever hurt you? Physically, Claire was quiet for a long moment. Not in ways that leave marks. He's too smart for that. But there are other ways to hurt someone. Controlling their money, their movements, who they can see, making them feel crazy for wanting basic freedom. That's still abuse. Try proving that in court. Amara thought about all the tiny cruelties she'd witnessed, the slow suffocation of Claire's spirit. What if we could prove the financial crimes instead? What financial crimes? Amara hesitated, then pulled out her phone, showing Claire the photo of the contract. Claire's eyes widened. Oh my God, he's using the hotel to launder money. I think so. And if the FBI is investigating, they could arrest him. Claire's voice was breathless with hope. Then reality crashed back. But they'd freeze all the assets. I'd have nothing to fight for custody with. Unless you moved money first. Quietly. I don't have access to. Claire stopped. Wait. The charity account. Richard put my name on it for tax purposes. There's nearly $1 million in it. Could you move it? Maybe. If I was careful. If I had help. She looked at Amara. This is dangerous. If he finds out, he's already dangerous. The question is whether you want to be his victim or his problem. Claire laughed, sharp and bitter. When did the maid become the strategist? When the billionaire's wife needed one. They were interrupted by Patricia returning from her break, disapproval written across her face at seeing them talking. Mrs. Thornton, Mr. Thornton called. He'll be late tonight. A business emergency. After she left, Claire grabbed Amara's hand. Help me, please. I know it's not your fight, but it became my fight the moment I delivered Grace. I'm not letting her grow up in this prison. 3 days later, Amara made a discovery that changed everything. She was cleaning Richard's office while he was at a meeting when she noticed his laptop was still open. He'd been in such a rush he'd forgotten to lock it. On the screen was an email thread that made her blood run cold. The FBI investigation wasn't just about money laundering. There were references to human trafficking, to women being moved through the hotel's special services program. Richard wasn't the mastermind, but he was deeply involved, his pharmaceutical company providing drugs to keep the women compliant. She took photos quickly, her hands shaking. This wasn't just financial crime. This was evil. What are you doing? Patricia stood in the doorway, her eyes narrowing at Amara's position by the desk. Mr. Thornton asked me to dust his office. Amara lied smoothly, moving her cloth over the desk surface. He specifically said no one was to touch his computer. I didn't touch it, just cleaning around it. Patricia's suspicion was obvious, but she couldn't prove anything. I'll be reporting this to Mr. Thornton. After she left, Amara's heart pounded. She needed to be more careful, but she also needed to get this information to someone who could use it. That evening, her mother's condition worsened. Amara sat by her hospital bed, holding her increasingly frail hand. Something's weighing on you, baby. Amara told her mother everything. The trafficking, the money laundering, Richard's threats, Claire's plan to escape. Lord have mercy, her mother whispered. You're in deep. I can't walk away now, Mama. I'm not saying you should, but you need to be smart. Men like Richard Thornton don't lose gracefully. They burn everything down rather than admit defeat. So what do? You protect yourself and that baby. Document everything. Tell someone you trust. And be ready to run if needed. I can't leave you. Her mother's grip tightened slightly. Baby girl, I'm not long for this world anyway. Don't you dare use me as an excuse to not do what's right. Mama. Promise me. Promise you'll see this through, but you'll be smart about it. I promise. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She created an encrypted email account and sent all the photos to it, then deleted them from her phone. She wrote down everything she'd witnessed, every detail, and hid the notebook in her apartment's ventilation grate. The next morning, the penthouse was in chaos. Richard was screaming into his phone while 3 lawyers huddled around the dining table. Claire stood in the nursery doorway, holding Grace protectively. What happened? Amara whispered. The FBI raided one of Richard's warehouses last night. They found something. He won't say what. Richard's voice carried from the other room. I don't care what they found. It's not connected to me. Yes, I know what it looks like. Fix it, or you're all fired. He stormed past them without acknowledgement, disappearing into his office. The lawyers followed like obedient dogs. This is our chance, Claire whispered urgently. While he's distracted, I've been moving money in small amounts. Another week and I'll have enough to run. Where will you go? Canada first. I have a friend there who'll help. Then maybe Europe, somewhere Richard's reach doesn't extend. He'll come after you. Let him try. If what you found is real, he'll be too busy fighting federal charges. That afternoon, while Claire was at a mandatory charity board meeting Richard insisted she attend, Amara was alone with Grace when she noticed something odd. A small device tucked under the changing table, barely visible. She recognized it from a crime show, a listening device. Her blood went cold. How long had it been there? What had Richard heard? She continued her routine normally, singing to Grace, talking about nothing important. But her mind raced. If Richard knew what they were planning, she texted Claire carefully. Beautiful weather today. Perfect for a walk in the park with Grace. Claire understood immediately. They met at a park 6 blocks away, far from any potential surveillance. He's bugging the nursery, Amara said without preamble. Claire's face went white. Has he heard? I don't know, but we have to assume he might know something. Oh God, the money transfers. If he checks the charity account, can you move it all now? Not without raising flags. Large transfers get reported. They sat on a bench, Grace sleeping in her stroller, looking like any nanny and mother enjoying the sunshine. But underneath, panic was building. There's something else, Amara said, telling Claire about the trafficking evidence. Claire wasn't surprised. I suspected something like that. Young women would sometimes be at the penthouse for Richard's business meetings. They looked wrong. Scared. Empty. We have to tell someone. Who? Richard owns half the police force through donations. The FBI? How do we know who to trust? Amara remembered something Daniel had said. I might know someone. She called Daniel, asking him to meet them. He arrived looking nervous but determined. My cousin, he said after hearing their story. He's been wanting out of Richard's security team. He knows an FBI agent who's clean. Agent Sarah Coleman. She's been building a case against Richard for 2 years. Can we trust her? My cousin says she's the only one Richard hasn't been able to buy or threaten. Set up a meeting, Claire decided. But carefully, Richard can't know. The meeting was arranged for the next day at a small cafe in a neighborhood Richard would never visit. Agent Coleman was a small woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I've been waiting for someone on the inside to come forward, she said after reviewing the evidence Amara had gathered. This is good, but I need more. Financial records, communications, anything that directly ties Richard to the trafficking. I can get those, Claire said. I know his passwords. He thinks I'm too stupid to pay attention. It's dangerous. If he suspects, he already controls every aspect of my life. What's he going to do? Control it more. Agent Coleman studied her. He could kill you. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. No, Claire said firmly. Not while everyone's watching. The hero Maid who delivered his baby, the devoted wife and new mother, were too public now. It would raise too many questions. Don't underestimate desperate men, Coleman warned. But if you can give me those records, I can move on this within a week. That night, Amara stayed late at the penthouse. Richard was at another crisis meeting, and Claire was implementing their plan. She'd given Grace a mild sedative, doctor-approved for fussy babies, to ensure she'd sleep deeply. Then she went into Richard's office. Amara stood guard, her heart pounding with every sound from the hallway. Patricia was on her break, but she could return any moment. Got it, Claire whispered, emerging with a flash drive. Everything, including recordings of him discussing the trafficking. He records all his calls for quality assurance. Arrogant bastard. They heard the elevator ding. Richard was back early. Claire rushed to the nursery while Amara grabbed cleaning supplies, making it look like she'd been working. Richard entered, his face dark with rage. "Where's my wife?" "In the nursery, sir." Grace was fussy. He strode past her. Amara heard him interrogating Claire about why Grace was so deeply asleep. Claire's voice was calm, talking about growth spurts and sleep patterns. Amara slipped out, the flash drive hidden in her bra. She delivered it to Agent Coleman that night. "This is enough," Coleman said, reviewing the files. "We move tomorrow night. Richard will be arrested at the charity gala he's hosting. Very public. No way for him to run. What about Claire and Grace? We'll protect them. Get them somewhere safe before the arrest." Amara felt relief flood through her. It was almost over. But the next morning, everything went wrong. She arrived at the penthouse to find Richard waiting, holding Grace. Claire was nowhere to be seen. "We need to talk," he said, his voice deadly calm. "About your extracurricular activities." Behind him, Patricia emerged from the office, holding Amara's notebook, the one she'd hidden at her apartment. "Patricia was very thorough," Richard said. "Breaking into your apartment was illegal, of course. But then, so is corporate espionage. Where's Claire?" "Somewhere safe. Getting the help she clearly needs for her paranoid delusions. You've been feeding her fantasies, haven't you? Making her believe I'm some kind of criminal. You are a criminal. Prove it." His smile was sharp. "Oh wait, you can't. Because all that evidence you thought you had, it's gone. Destroyed. Along with any copies you might have made." Amara's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Coleman compromised. "Get out. Now. D." Richard saw her face change. "Ah, you got the news." "Yes. Agent Coleman has been transferred. Amazing what a word in the right ear can do. And your friend Daniel? He's been arrested. Drugs found in his locker. Terrible shame. You can't. I can do anything. I am Richard Thornton. And you're nobody. A maid who got lucky once." He shifted Grace in his arms. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. Tonight. You're going to disappear and never come near my family again. Or your mother's treatment gets cut off. Daniel goes to prison. And you? Well, accidents happen. Claire will fight you. Claire is sedated in a private psychiatric facility. By the time she's released, you'll be gone, and she'll understand that fighting me is pointless." Grace started crying, reaching for Amara. Richard pulled her back. "Say goodbye," he said. "You'll never see her again." Amara looked at Grace, this baby she'd brought into the world, now trapped in the arms of a monster. Everything they'd fought for gone. But then she remembered her grandmother's words. Sometimes you have to lose a battle to win the war. "Goodbye, Grace," she said softly. Then she looked at Richard. "This isn't over." "Yes," he said with complete confidence. "It is. 3 days." That's how long Amara lasted before she decided Richard Thornton had underestimated her for the last time. She sat in her mother's hospital room, watching the machines breathe for the woman who'd raised her to fight even when the odds seemed impossible. The doctors had given her another week, maybe 2. Richard's threat to cut off treatment didn't matter anymore. There was no treatment left to cut. "Stop looking at me like I'm already gone," her mother whispered, her voice barely audible. "Mama, I failed. Richard won. Claire's locked up, Daniel's in jail, and Grace. You haven't failed until you stop fighting." Her mother's eyes, though dimmed by pain, still held fire. "Your grandmother delivered babies in shacks while the KKK burned crosses outside. I integrated a factory floor when men threw bottles at me. You think some rich white man with a god complex is going to stop my baby? Not the child I raised. He has all the power. No, baby. He has money. There's a difference. Power is what you do when everything's taken from you, and you still stand up." That afternoon, Amara got an unexpected call. It was Marcus from the hotel. "Don't hang up. I'm on a burner phone. Can we meet?" They met at a diner on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where nobody asked questions. Marcus looked exhausted, constantly checking over his shoulder. "The hotel's in chaos," he said. "After you left, things got weird. FBI agents showing up even though Richard said he'd handled it. Staff being questioned. And Mrs. Patterson? She disappeared 2 nights ago. Disappeared. Her car was found by the river. No body, but her purse was on the bridge. Marcus leaned closer. I don't think she jumped. I think she knew something about the trafficking. Marcus nodded. She was in on it. Had to be. But when the heat came down, she became a liability. Richard's cleaning house. Yeah, but here's the thing, he's scared. Really scared. The FBI might have backed off officially, but someone's still digging. Someone he can't buy. Ooh, no idea. But Claire's mother has been raising hell. Old money, real connections. She's demanding to see her daughter, threatening lawsuits. Richard trying to keep it quiet, but words spreading. Amara felt a spark of hope. Do you know where Claire is? Whitewood Psychiatric. Private facility about 2 hours north. But it's locked down tight. And Daniel? City jail, awaiting trial. His lawyer's useless. Public defender who's overwhelmed. After Marcus left, Amara made a decision. She couldn't fight Richard's money, but she could fight his narrative. She called the one journalist who'd been sympathetic during the birth story, Lisa Washington from the local news. I remember you, Lisa said. The hero Maid. What's going on? A story bigger than a baby delivery. But I need protection. Can we meet? They met in Lisa's car, away from cameras and recording devices. Amara told her everything. The trafficking, the money laundering, Claire's imprisonment, Daniel's false arrest. This is huge, Lisa breathed. But I need proof. Without evidence. What if I could get you into Whitewood? To see Claire? That's impossible. They don't allow. They allow clergy. My pastor owes me a favor. 2 days later, Reverend James Williams entered Whitewood Psychiatric with Lisa posing as a church counselor. They found Claire in the quiet wing, a nice name for solitary confinement. She was heavily medicated, but coherent enough to recognize allies. Amara sent you? She whispered, tears flowing. Is Grace okay? We're working on getting you both out, Lisa promised, secretly recording. Can you tell me what happened? Richard had me committed. Said I was a danger to Grace. The doctor's here, they're on his payroll. They keep me sedated, make me sign things. I think he's trying to get power of attorney. Has he hurt you? Define hurt. They force medication that makes me sick. They restrain me if I resist. They tell me I'm crazy so many times, I almost believe it. Lisa got what she needed. That night, her expose aired. Billionaire's wife imprisoned. The dark side of Richard Thornton. The public response was immediate and fierce. Social media exploded. Women's rights groups picketed Thornton Pharmaceuticals. Hashtag #FreeClaire started trending. Richard responded with his own PR offensive, having doctors claim Claire was genuinely ill, that he was heartbroken but doing what was best for their family. But cracks were showing. Former employees started speaking up anonymously. A maid from his house confirmed Claire's abuse. A security guard admitted to being ordered to follow Amara. Meanwhile, Amara wasn't idle. She visited Daniel in jail, using her last paycheck to put money in his commissary account. You shouldn't be here, he said through the glass. It's dangerous. Everything's dangerous now. Tell me about your cousin, the one on Richard's security team. Tommy. What? Is he still willing to flip? Maybe, but Richard has his family threatened. Tommy's got kids. What if we could guarantee their safety? Ow! Amara smiled grimly. Claire's mother isn't the only one with connections. She called Agent Coleman's personal number, the one the agent had given her before everything went wrong. This line isn't secure, Coleman said immediately. I know, but you're not compromised, are you? They just moved you. A pause. Meet me at St. Mary's Church. Midnight. The church was empty except for Coleman, who looked tired but determined. I'm off the case officially, she said. But I've been building a parallel investigation. Off the books. Richard thinks he won, but he made mistakes. Big ones. Like Patricia, your supervisor. She didn't run. Richard had her killed. But she'd been talking to us first. Gave us names, dates, details about the trafficking. We have her sworn statement. That's enough to arrest him? Almost. We need one more piece. Someone inside his organization to confirm the financial trail. Your friend's cousin, Tommy? If he flips, we have Richard. He needs protection for his family. Done. Witness protection if needed. And Claire needs to be freed. Once Richard's arrested, her commitment papers become worthless. But we need to move fast. He's planning to leave the country. There's a private jet scheduled for tomorrow night. After the charity gala he's still hosting. He's still having his party? Richard Thornton doesn't admit defeat. He's pretending everything's normal while arranging his escape. Amara thought quickly. The gala. That's our chance. Everyone will be watching. What are you thinking? What if Claire showed up? Publicly? If she escaped and appeared at his big event? That's impossible. Whitewood is. Run by doctors who like money. And Claire's mother has more money than Richard realizes. The next morning, Amara sat with Daniel's cousin Tommy in a park. He was nervous, sweating despite the cool air. If I do this, he'll kill me. If you don't, you'll be living in fear forever. Your kids will grow up with that shadow. Is that what you want? Tommy looked at photos of his children on his phone. You promise they'll be safe? Agent Coleman promised. New identities if needed. New life. All right, I'll do it. I have recordings, documents, everything. Richard made me help coordinate the trafficking routes. I kept copies for insurance. Can you get them to Coleman? Yeah, but Amara? Once I do this, Richard will know someone inside betrayed him. He'll go nuclear. Let him. We'll be ready. That evening, as the city's elite gathered for Richard's charity gala at the Grand Meridian, several things happened simultaneously. Tommy delivered his evidence to Agent Coleman. A federal judge, reviewing the new evidence, signed arrest warrants. Lisa Washington prepared for a live broadcast from outside the hotel. And at Whitewood Psychiatric, Claire's mother arrived with her own doctors and lawyers, plus a court order demanding Claire's immediate release for independent evaluation. Claire walked out of Whitewood at 7 p.m., shaky but free. Amara was waiting in the car. We're going to the gala, Amara said. I can't face him. Not after. Yes, you can. Because this time, you're not alone. They drove toward the hotel, Claire gripping Amara's hand. She was still wearing the hospital gown under a coat her mother had brought, her hair unwashed, her face pale. But her eyes were clear for the first time in days. Where's Grace? At the gala. Richard brought her, playing the devoted single father for sympathy. He has my baby at a party? With the weekend nanny, making sure everyone sees him as the victim. Claire's jaw set. Not anymore. The Grand Meridian was ablaze with lights. Luxury cars lined up at the entrance where Amara had once slipped through the employee door. Now she walked through the front entrance with Claire, past security who were too shocked to stop them. The ballroom was packed with the city's wealthy, all champagne and false laughter. Richard stood at the center, Grace in his arms, accepting condolences for his difficult situation with his ill wife. Then the crowd parted, and he saw them. His face went from confident to shocked to furious in seconds. But he couldn't make a scene, not with hundreds watching. Claire walked straight to him, Amara beside her. Hello, Richard, Claire said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. I've come for our daughter. Claire, darling. Richard's voice was steady, but his eyes were volcanic. You should be resting. You're not well. I'm perfectly well. The independent doctors confirmed it. Funny how a second opinion changes things. She reached for Grace, who immediately leaned toward her mother. The weekend nanny, confused. Let Claire take her. Cameras flashed. The moment would be on every social media feed within minutes. We should discuss this privately, Richard hissed. No more private discussions. No more closed doors. Claire's voice carried. I want everyone to know what you've done. You're making a scene. I'm telling the truth. Richard grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in. Stop this now, or Mr. Thornton? They turned. Agent Coleman stood there with 6 other FBI agents, badges visible. Richard Thornton, you're under arrest for money laundering, human trafficking, and conspiracy to commit murder. The ballroom erupted. Guests screamed, pushed back, phones out recording everything. Richard's lawyers materialized, shouting about warrants and procedure. The warrant's right here, Coleman said, holding it up. And we have everything. Thomas Morrison gave us your files. Every transaction, every communication, every crime. Richard's face went white. Tommy wouldn't. He did. After you threatened his children one too many times. As agents cuffed Richard, he turned to Amara with pure hatred. You did this. You poisoned them against me. No, Amara said quietly. You did this. I just made sure you got caught. You're nobody. A maid. You cleaned toilets. And I delivered your daughter. Saved your wife. Brought down your empire. Amara stepped closer. Turns out being nobody means you never saw me coming. They dragged Richard out as cameras captured every moment. The mighty Richard Thornton, in handcuffs at his own gala. But Amara barely noticed. She was watching Claire hold Grace, both of them crying, both of them free. Lisa Washington was broadcasting live. In a stunning turn of events, pharmaceutical billionaire Richard Thornton has been arrested at his own charity gala. Sources confirm this is connected to a human trafficking ring operating through the Grand Meridian Hotel. The next hours were a blur. Claire and Grace were taken to safety. Other arrests were made. Several hotel executives, 2 judges Richard had bribed, a police chief. The network Richard had built crumbled in a single night. Amara found herself at the police station, giving her statement again. Agent Coleman sat across from her, looking exhausted but satisfied. You know you're a hero, right? Again, I'm just a maid who got involved. No, you're the woman who stood up when everyone else was too scared. Your testimony will put Richard away for life. What about Claire and Grace? They're safe. Claire's mother has them. With Richard's assets frozen pending investigation, Claire will get emergency support. She'll be okay. And Daniel? Released an hour ago. All charges dropped. He's outside, actually. Wouldn't leave until he saw you. Amara found Daniel in the waiting room, still wearing his jail clothes, but grinning. We did it, he said, hugging her. We actually did it. You did. Getting Tommy to flip changed everything. Only because you showed us it was possible to fight back. Over the next days, the story dominated the news. The grand jury indicted Richard on 37 counts. More victims came forward. The trafficking ring was exposed, dozens of women freed. But for Amara, the victory was bittersweet. Her mother passed away the morning after Richard's arrest, as if she'd been holding on just to see her daughter triumph. I'm proud of you, baby, were her last words. You fought the giant and won. The funeral was small but meaningful. Claire came, despite the media circus following her. She stood beside Amara at the grave, Grace in her arms. Your mother raised a warrior, Claire said softly. She raised someone who does what needs doing. What will you do now? The hotel's closed, pending investigation. I don't know. Look for another job, I guess. Actually, Claire said, I have a proposition. 2 weeks later, Amara stood in front of a classroom of nursing students. The scholarship Claire had arranged, the Amara Jackson Courage Foundation, would pay for her education and that of 10 other women from underserved communities each year. Some of you might know me from the news, Amara began. The maid who delivered a baby. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because sometimes life puts you where you need to be, even if you don't realize it at the time. She talked about her grandmother, the midwife who worked in impossible conditions. Her mother, who fought every day just to survive. And herself, who learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing what's right despite the fear. Healthcare isn't just about medicine, she concluded. It's about seeing people who are invisible, hearing voices that are silenced, and sometimes standing up to those who abuse their power. After class, she visited Claire and Grace in their new apartment. Modest but warm, nothing like the cold penthouse. Grace was crawling now, babbling happily. The gray nursery had been replaced with colorful walls and soft toys. The divorce will be final soon, Claire said. Richard's trying to fight from prison, but he has no leverage. His empire's gone. Most of it was built on crime anyway. How are you doing? Really? Some days are hard. The trauma doesn't just disappear. But I have a good therapist, one I chose myself. And I have Grace. And I have you. You don't need me anymore. You're strong enough on your own. Strength isn't about not needing anyone. It's about choosing the right people to need. Claire smiled. Besides, Grace needs her Aunt Amara. As if understanding, Grace crawled to Amara, pulling herself up on Amara's legs, demanding to be held. Amara lifted her, this child she'd brought into the world in chaos who was now growing in peace. Your mama's right, she told Grace. We all need each other. That evening, Amara stood on the roof of her apartment building, looking out over the city. The Grand Meridian was dark, wrapped in police tape. Richard's pharmaceutical company was being dissolved, its legitimate assets sold to pay victims. The world had changed because one maid decided to act. Her phone buzzed. A text from Agent Coleman. Thought you should know. Richard just pled guilty to avoid trial. Life without parole. You won. Amara deleted the message. This had never been about winning. It had been about doing what was right, what was necessary, what her grandmother would have called God's work disguised as ordinary labor. She thought about all the invisible people still out there, the maids, the janitors, the forgotten ones who kept the world running while the powerful pretended they didn't exist. Her story had given them something they'd rarely had, proof that sometimes, just sometimes, the invisible could become invincible. Tomorrow she'd start her nursing classes. Tomorrow she'd begin building a new life. But tonight, she simply stood there, feeling her mother's presence in the wind, her grandmother's strength in her bones. I see you, Mama, she whispered to the sky. And I promise, I'll make sure others are seen too. The city lights twinkled below, each one representing a life, a story, a possibility. Amara Jackson, who'd walked into a hotel as nobody and walked out as somebody, finally understood that she'd always been somebody. It just took delivering a billionaire's baby and destroying his empire for the world to notice. But she'd known. Her mother had known. Her grandmother had known. And now, finally, everyone else knew too. The invisible maid had become unforgettable. 6 months had passed since Richard's arrest, but the war was far from over. Amara sat in her nursing school library, textbooks spread before her, when her phone buzzed with an urgent message from Claire. He's trying to get out. Come quickly. The courthouse was surrounded by media when Amara arrived. Richard's new legal team, paid for by shadowy investors who still believed in his potential, had filed an appeal claiming evidence tampering and witness coercion. It's a Hail Mary, Agent Coleman explained in the hallway. But he's got Judge Morrison. I thought Morrison was arrested. Different Morrison. This one's the father. And he owes Richard favors from way back. Inside the courtroom, Richard sat in his orange jumpsuit, but his posture remained arrogant. When he saw Amara, his lips curved in a cold smile. He'd lost weight, his hair was gray at the roots, but his eyes still held that dangerous confidence. Claire sat in the front row, clutching a folder. She looked stronger than she had 6 months ago, her therapy and freedom having restored some of her old self. Your Honor, Richard's lawyer began, new evidence has come to light suggesting my client was framed by a conspiracy between a disgruntled employee and his mentally unstable wife. Objection, the prosecutor said. Mrs. Thornton's mental health has been thoroughly evaluated. By doctors she paid for, the defense countered. Amara watched Claire's hands tremble. This was Richard's game. Attack, humiliate, destroy. Even from a jail cell, he wielded his weapons. The hearing went on for hours. Richard's team presented doctored emails suggesting Amara had planned everything for money, that Claire had seduced her into a scheme. They even suggested the baby's dramatic delivery had been staged. This is insane, Amara whispered to Coleman. It doesn't have to be true, just convincing enough to create doubt. When court recessed, Claire pulled Amara aside. I have something I never told anyone. She opened the folder, revealing photographs and documents. Richard kept trophies, pictures of the women they trafficked, records of who bought them, names, dates, everything. He thought he destroyed it all, but he kept one backup in a safe deposit box only I knew about. Why didn't you? I was terrified. Some of these names, senators, judges, police commissioners. But I can't let him win. Not again. This could get you killed, Claire. I'm already dead if he gets out. We both are. That night, they met with Lisa Washington in a secure location. The journalist went pale reviewing the documents. This implicates half the city's power structure. That's why Richard thinks he can get out, Amara said. They need him free to keep their secrets safe. If we release this, we become targets, Claire finished. But if we don't, Richard wins. Lisa made copies of everything, distributing them to trusted colleagues with instructions to release if anything happened to them. Insurance, she called it. The next morning, Amara was walking to class when a black car pulled alongside her. The window rolled down, revealing a man she didn't recognize. Ms. Jackson? Some people would like to speak with you. I'm not getting in that car. It's about your friend Daniel. He's in trouble. Her blood ran cold. She called Daniel's phone. No answer. Against her better judgment, she got in. The car drove to an abandoned warehouse. Inside, Daniel was tied to a chair, beaten but alive. 3 men in suits stood around him. Ms. Jackson, the apparent leader said, we represent certain interests that would prefer Richard Thornton's case disappear quietly. Let Daniel go. After we reach an understanding, you and Mrs. Thornton will recant your testimony. Say you were coerced, confused, whatever. In exchange, your friend lives, and you receive enough money to disappear comfortably. And if we refuse, the man pulled out a gun, pressing it to Daniel's head. Then we start with him. Your nursing school friends are next. Then that nice reverend who helped you. We'll save you and Claire for last. Make you watch everyone else pay for your stubbornness. Daniel looked at her, blood running from his nose. Don't do it, Amara. Don't let them win. Brave words, the man said. Let's see if you're still brave after we put a bullet in your knee. Wait. Amara pulled out her phone. I'm calling Claire. We'll do what you want. She dialed, putting on speaker. Claire answered immediately. Amara? Where are you? I'm with some of Richard's friends. They have Daniel. Silence. Then Claire's voice, steady. Are you at the warehouse on Pier 47? The men exchanged glances. How did she know? Because I'm outside, Claire continued. With FBI agents and a SWAT team. You're surrounded. Let them go, and you might live through this. The leader rushed to a window. Red laser dots appeared on his chest from snipers outside. You set us up? No, Amara said. You set yourselves up when you took Daniel. We knew Richard would try something desperate. Agent Coleman's been tracking his associates for weeks. The door exploded inward. FBI agents swarmed in, weapons drawn. The kidnappers surrendered without a fight, their arrogance evaporating in the face of actual consequences. As paramedics treated Daniel, Coleman approached Amara. That was dangerous, using yourself as bait. It worked, didn't it? This time. But Richard's not done. This was just his first move. That evening, Lisa Washington went live with the biggest story of her career. The documents Claire had provided were released simultaneously across multiple platforms. The trafficking network's client list sent shockwaves through the city. The corruption goes deeper than anyone imagined, Lisa reported. Richard Thornton wasn't just a criminal. He was the center of a web involving dozens of powerful figures. By morning, 17 more arrests had been made. A senator resigned. 2 judges recused themselves from all cases. The police commissioner announced early retirement. Richard's appeal hearing resumed in chaos. His lawyer tried to claim the new evidence was inadmissible, that it was prejudicial. But the damage was done. Even Judge Morrison couldn't ignore the tsunami of evidence. Richard took the stand in a last, desperate move, his voice still commanding despite his circumstances. This is a witch hunt orchestrated by a vindictive ex-wife and an opportunistic Maid who saw a chance for fame. Then explain these photographs, the prosecutor said, showing images of trafficked women. From your personal collection, planted evidence. With your fingerprints? Your DNA? Richard's composure cracked. You don't understand. I was protecting them. Those women would have been on the streets or worse. I gave them purpose, structure. You sold them. Claire stood up in the gallery, unable to contain herself. You sold human beings like property. Order. The judge banged his gavel, but Claire continued. You kept trophies of their suffering. You recorded their screams. You're not a businessman. You're a monster. Security moved to escort her out, but the judge raised his hand. Let her speak. Claire faced Richard directly. You control me for years. Made me think I was crazy, worthless, broken. But I survived. They survived. And you? You're going to rot in prison knowing that a maid and your crazy wife brought down your empire. Richard lunged from the witness stand, reaching for Claire with rage in his eyes. Guards tackled him, dragging him back as he screamed threats. I'll kill you. Both of you. You're nothing. Nothing. The judge had seen enough. Appeal denied. And Mr. Thornton? I'm adding attempted assault charges. Bailiff, remove him. As Richard was dragged away, still screaming, Amara felt something she hadn't expected: pity. He was so consumed by his need for control that losing it had broken his mind. Outside the courthouse, Claire stood with Grace in her arms, facing the cameras. For too long, women like me have stayed silent about abuse because we're told it's private, it's family business, it's not that bad. But silence is what allows men like Richard to thrive. No more silence. A reporter shouted, "What about the maid? Amara Jackson?" Claire smiled. Amara Jackson saved my daughter's life twice. Once when she delivered her, and again when she helped us escape Richard's prison. She's not just a maid. She's a hero. 1 year later, Amara stood in her nursing graduation ceremony, her cap and gown crisp and new. In the audience sat Claire and Grace, now a toddling 2-year-old with her mother's eyes and a fierce independence that reminded everyone of Amara. Amara Jackson, the dean announced, graduating with highest honors, recipient of the Florence Nightingale Award for Excellence in Patient Advocacy. As she walked across the stage, Amara thought of her mother and grandmother, wishing they could see this moment. But then she spotted familiar faces in the crowd. Daniel, now a hotel manager at a different chain, Marcus, who'd started his own security company, even Tommy, Daniel's cousin, out of witness protection to support her. After the ceremony, Lisa Washington approached with a camera crew. "Amara, how does it feel to finally achieve your dream?" "It feels like the beginning, not the end. There are still so many people who need advocates, who need someone to see them." "Any regrets about what happened with Richard Thornton?" "My only regret is that it took so long for someone to stop him. How many suffered while we all stayed silent?" That afternoon, at the small celebration Claire had organized, Agent Coleman appeared with news. Richard was found dead in his cell this morning. The room went silent. "How?" Claire asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Suicide. He left a note, claiming innocence to the end. But he also left something else, a full confession hidden in his cell. Names, dates, everything we didn't have. It's like he wanted to take everyone down with him. Even in death, he needed control," Claire said softly. They stood in silence for a moment, processing the end of the man who'd terrorized so many. Then Grace toddled over, tugging on Amara's graduation gown. "Up, up," she demanded. Amara lifted her, this child who'd entered the world in chaos but would grow up in freedom. "You know," Claire said, "I've been thinking about what to do with the money. Once the victims are compensated and the legal fees are paid, there's still millions left." "That's your money, Claire." "No, it's blood money. I want to do something good with it." She pulled out a folder. "I'm starting a foundation. Not just scholarships, but a whole program. Safe houses for trafficking victims. Legal aid for abused women. Medical training for people from underserved communities." "That's amazing. I want you to run it." Amara nearly dropped Grace. "What?" "I just graduated nursing school. And you brought down a trafficking ring. You saved lives. You changed the world. Who better? I'm not qualified. You delivered my baby in a hotel bathroom. Qualification is relative." Claire smiled. "Besides, you'll have help. Agent Coleman is retiring from the FBI to head up our security division. Daniel agreed to manage operations. Lisa wants to run our awareness campaigns. You've been planning this for months. The Amara Jackson Foundation for Justice and Healing. Though if you want to change the name." "No." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "My mother would have loved that." 6 months into her nursing career, Amara stood before a congressional committee testifying about human trafficking in the hospitality industry. Her words, backed by evidence from Richard's case, led to new legislation requiring hotels to train staff in recognizing trafficking signs. "The victims are hiding in plain sight," she testified. "But so are the heroes. The maids, the janitors, the bellboys. We see everything. We just need to be empowered to act." The foundation grew rapidly. Within 2 years, they'd helped free over 300 trafficking victims, provided legal aid to 1,000 abuse survivors, and put 50 students through medical school. Amara split her time between nursing and the foundation, finding purpose in both. She specialized in maternal health, particularly for women of color, carrying on her grandmother's legacy in modern hospitals instead of rural shacks. One evening, 3 years after Richard's death, Amara was leaving the hospital after a particularly difficult delivery. A teenage mother who'd escaped her trafficker while pregnant. The girl had named her daughter Hope, saying Amara's story had inspired her to run. In the parking lot, Claire waited with 5-year-old Grace, who ran to Amara with a handmade card. "Happy Hero Day," Grace announced. "What's Hero Day?" "The day you brought me into the world," Claire explained. Grace insisted we make it a holiday. The card was covered in crayon drawings. A stick figure Amara holding a baby, surrounded by hearts and stars. Inside, in Grace's shaky handwriting, "Thank you for saving Mommy and me." "You know," Claire said as Grace ran ahead to the car, "I never asked you something. That day, when you heard me screaming, you could have walked away, called for help, and left. Why didn't you?" Amara thought about it. "My grandmother used to say that God puts you where you need to be when you need to be there. But I think it's more than that. I think we all have moments when we can choose to be invisible or invincible. That day I chose to be seen, and changed everything. We changed everything. Together." They drove to the cemetery where Amara's mother was buried. Grace placed flowers on the grave while Amara told her mother about the foundation's latest success, a shelter they'd opened in her mother's name. 20 beds, Mama, for women escaping situations like Claire's. Your name's on the door, Evelyn Jackson, Safe Haven. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, Amara could almost hear her mother's voice. "That's my baby girl." Standing tall, standing proud. As they prepared to leave, a young black woman approached hesitantly. She wore a hotel uniform from a chain across town. "Excuse me, are you Amara Jackson?" "Yes. I'm Keisha. I'm a maid at the Marriott. I think something bad is happening at my hotel. With some of the guests. Young girls who look scared. Management tells us to ignore it, but after what you did..." Amara exchanged glances with Claire, then handed Keisha a business card. "Call this number. Ask for Agent Coleman. Tell her I sent you." "Will it be dangerous?" "Probably," Amara said honestly. "But doing nothing is dangerous too, just to different people." As Keisha walked away, Claire asked, "Think this is another trafficking ring?" "Could be. Coleman will find out. And if it is, then we do what we always do. We fight. We expose. We save who we can." Grace tugged on Amara's hand. "And Amara, will you teach me to be brave like you?" Amara knelt down to Grace's level. "You're already brave, sweetheart. You were born brave, coming into this world the way you did. But I'll teach you something more important. How to see people who are invisible and help them become invincible." That night, Amara stood in her apartment. Not fancy, but comfortable, paid for with her nursing salary, not charity. The walls were covered with photos. Her graduating class, the Foundation's first rescue, Claire and Grace at the beach, Daniel at his wedding where Amara had been the best woman. Her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Ms. Jackson, this is Senator Williams. I've been following your work. I'm drafting legislation to make human trafficking a federal crime with mandatory minimums. I like your input." "Senator, I'm just a nurse." "No, Ms. Jackson, you're the woman who proved that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. That's exactly whose input I need." After the call, Amara sat on her fire escape, looking out at the city lights. The Grand Meridian had been demolished, a community center built in its place. Richard's pharmaceutical company had been restructured as a nonprofit providing affordable medication. The world had changed because she'd chosen to act. But more importantly, she had changed. The invisible maid who'd once cleaned rooms in silence had found her voice. The woman who'd struggled to pay her mother's medical bills now helped others pay theirs. The girl who'd dreamed of being a nurse was now saving lives every day. Her phone buzzed with a text from Claire. News just broke. Another hotel chain CEO arrested based on tips from their cleaning staff. "You started something, Amara. A movement." Amara smiled, thinking of all the invisible people finding their voices, all the maids and janitors and forgotten workers realizing they had power. "No," she texted back. "We started something. All of us who refuse to be invisible anymore." A year later, at the Foundation's annual gala, Held in the community center that had replaced the Grand Meridian, Amara gave the keynote speech. 5 years ago, I was a maid cleaning hotel rooms. I was invisible, forgettable, dismissible. Then one day, a woman screamed for help, and I had to choose, stay invisible or become involved. That choice changed everything. She looked out at the audience, survivors, advocates, former employees of the Grand Meridian, nursing students, even some reformed clients from Richard's network who now work to stop trafficking. But here's what I've learned. I was never actually invisible. None of us are. We're only invisible to those who choose not to see us. And when we stand up, when we speak out, when we refuse to be ignored, that's when we become invincible. The crowd erupted in applause. Claire stood in the front row, tears streaming down her face, Grace on her hip wearing a tiny t-shirt that read Future Hero. After the speech, an elderly black woman approached Amara. She looked familiar, but Amara couldn't place her. "You don't know me," the woman said, "but I knew your grandmother. I was one of the girls she helped back in Georgia, when abortion was illegal and I had nowhere to turn. She risked everything to help me." The woman took Amara's hands. "She'd be so proud. You're carrying on her work, just in a different way. Saving women, protecting children, standing up to powerful men. That's the family business, child. That's your inheritance." As the evening wound down, Amara stood where the Grand Meridian's employee entrance had once been. This is where it all started. A tired maid heading to work, never imagining she'd help bring down an empire. Grace ran up to her, holding a dandelion she'd picked from a crack in the sidewalk. "Make a wish, Aunt Amara. You make it for me, sweetheart." Grace closed her eyes tight, then blew the seeds into the wind. They scattered across the site where so much pain had happened, but where now children played and families found safety. "What did you wish for?" Amara asked. "For every invisible person to become a superhero like you." Amara lifted Grace up, looking at this child who would grow up in a world slightly better than the one she'd been born into. "Not perfect, not fixed, but better. That's a good wish," she said. "Let's make it come true." As they walked away together, Claire, Grace, and Amara, the setting sun cast long shadows behind them. But ahead, the path was bright and clear. The invisible maid had become unforgettable. The forgotten had become a force. And the world, one rescue at a time, one voice at a time, was changing. Because Amara Jackson had answered a cry for help, and in doing so, had shown everyone that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear uniforms and clean rooms. Sometimes they're the people you pass without seeing. But they're always there, waiting for their moment to choose between invisible and invincible. And more we're choosing to be seen. What invisible person in your life might be capable of extraordinary things if given the chance? Share your thoughts and subscribe for more powerful stories.